I'm going to talk about things that are worthwhile learning. And while thinking about how to start this conversation with you today, I thought the best way to do it is by talking about a personal story. This is the picture of my daughter. I have this picture because I couldn't find a picture of me with my dad when I was that age. So when I think about my daughter, I can't stop thinking about my childhood. I grew up in a family that I thought was like any other family. I grew up in Colombia. And we work in projects for everything. So when I was invited to talk about projects, it's something that I've done through my life, and I'm speaking to you today as a child also who grew up working on projects. So we work on projects that had to do with school. So I was famous in school for doing the best science projects, and it was about the only time you will see my father at school helping with the science projects. But we also did projects for everything else at home. So we opened an appliance that was broken, tried to understand what was broken and tried to fix it. We also did fun projects like building a kite and creating our own glue, cutting the wood, finding the paper, thinking about how to fly a kite and the things that you have to attach to a kite so it could fly. So we did projects for almost everything at home. And thinking about what that meant for today, really what made a difference was we had the time to work on these projects, not 45 minutes, not 50 minutes, but we devoted a long time on working on these projects. We also had ideas. So we started with one idea, moved into another idea, and probably ended up with a much different idea or an evolution of the initial idea. So ideas are important. We also had resources, and that's something that I learned a lot because we needed to use tools, resources, materials. So I learned to solder when I was a kid. I learned to do carpentry. I learned a lot of things, and the tools were much different than they are today. I also had a dynamic. So we developed this dynamic of work between the members of my family. For example, we will make a project out of my dad having to do a presentation, and we will ask questions and play the audience. And we also had an audience, a motivation. Sometimes it was the science project, sometimes was to have the coolest kite flying or to repair something at home, but we had an audience and a motivation. And all of those things together made wonderful projects. And I grew up in this family thinking every other family is the same, but found out as I grew up that that was not the case. And it was later when I had the opportunity to come to the Media Lab, like Rosanna said. I moved to the Media Lab 19 years ago. I started as a researcher, then I did my PhD, my master's, and then I still hold a position as a researcher in the lab. And I don't know, for those, people are familiar with the Media Lab. Have you heard about the Media Lab? So the Media Lab is a program at MIT. It's only a graduate program. The idea is that people with different backgrounds come to work together, and what makes us come together is an interest in using technology to serve people, to make people's life better, to learn in different ways. So there are different groups doing different things with technology. My group does research and learning. Other groups that do research on entertainment, or others do research in robotics. So lots of people with different backgrounds come together only for 4 to 6 years for a graduate program. So I was fortunate enough to come to the Media Lab and meet Seymour Papert. Seymour spent most of his life thinking about how kids learn. He worked with Piaget when he was young, and he understood people learn by constructing knowledge, not by being told or by memorizing. But he also understood that technology played an important role in becoming a tool for people to explore ideas. So I joined the group, like I said, just to summarize some of the most important things. In our group and our theory is, it comes from Piaget. We are based in probably the same ideas that that brought you here. People learn better when they build things, when they do projects. For us, what's important about that tool and the learning is the powerful ideas. What are powerful ideas? Are things that are worthwhile learning. It's worthwhile learning multiplication because I can do things with multiplication. It's worthwhile learning about evolution because I can understand the world. So for us, linking those two, technology and powerful ideas, is really important. And I'll talk about some examples. Interaction with peers is important. I don't think it was as important initially in our group because we were really devoted in understanding how individuals learn. But as technology has evolved, we have, like Rosanna said, 2.5 million computers connected to the internet all over the world. Also the way people collaborate physically and also virtually has changed. We also pay attention to how you learn in school, but also how you learn in non-formal spaces and also in informal ways. And we pay a lot of attention to tools. So we have spent most of our time, and we still do, developing tools that will help kids especially learn. Like I said, those tools are open-ended. What that means is not an educational software. When I tell people I work in technology and education, they're imagining that I'm doing this educational software where kids come and click, and then they learn about a specific topic. What we do is create environments that allow kids to learn. We strongly believe that when you develop a software, the one that develops the software is the person that learns the most. He has to understand the subject or the topics or the concepts. He has to think about how people will interact with it, how people will learn different ways of learning. So that person is the one that learns the most. So what we're building is those open-ended environments that will help children create projects about anything they want. It could be a story, it could be a simulation, it could be a graphing tool, anything. And we say that those tools have low floor. What that means is that even without a lot of experience, I can use these tools to create something. So quickly, I can use those tools to produce something meaningful. They also have high ceiling, and they vary according to the tool and the age we target. But high ceiling means that even a tool that I could use easily will allow me to build things that are more sophisticated. And I'll give you some examples later. And why walls? Because we want people with different interests, different learning styles, different background to use these tools to be able to create something, to create projects. So this summarizes some of the ideas that came from this group. Like I said, I was fortunate enough to come to a place where I felt really comfortable as a learner, but also as a person creating powerful learning experiences for others. And the center, you might say that technology is our center of attention, but it's really projects and powerful ideas in that connection. Why? Because we believe that what artifact or what external entity people create is really the process of learning. I'm creating something, I'm building something, putting together, introducing new ideas, and then I get that feedback through my physical project. And what makes a good project? A good project, and I brought here some examples. So I can do many things that are probably more concentrated. If it's a concept, I can do a project about that concept, or I can do things that are more elaborated. So I have here other examples. For example, I can build a robotics project and a simulation that will help people. And this is, you'll see it here on your left side. This is a project that a group of teenagers did thinking about the environment. How can I save energy by having a shower that tells you how many minutes you've been showering, but also calculates the minutes that you save. Like if you cut your shower in the morning with hot water by a minute and your family has this many members, how much money that means in a year. So that's a good project that they created around a problem, a topic on their community. It might be just a beautiful picture, but it's created using Logo, so I can program and create beautiful art. That's also a good project. Or I can do a simulation. I have in the right side a project where kids are collecting data, and they can be located in different places in the world. They can collect data and do research together, where they investigate, for example, how long does it take for a glass of water to evaporate, and what are the conditions in my environment that make that happen. So they can interact through the internet, collect data. So all of those are examples of things that we imagine kids doing and we're promoting kids do. So we have a number of software, and we, like I said, we are interested and busy creating open-ended environments that we call constructionist environments that allow people to create. Nevertheless, we think that other type of software is also important. So we are promoting the kids play games, but they can also play games that allows them to understand a concept. So those are important. So I classified these tools in two axes. One is the user experience, and the other one is how broad or how narrow the content that those software allow. So for the quadrant of games, I have an experience that is more limited. So I can play that game. The person who made that game had a purpose. I can interact with that concept. My experience as a user is really limited by the way that that software was created, and also the concepts that are included are also narrow, because that's something that someone else decided for me. But like I said, we value those. As I move in the upper side to something that we call utilities, so Word, or we have tools for speak, so you can type text and then you can hear it for kids that are learning to read. You have a ruler that allows you to measure things. So all of the tools, browser, are tools that are limited in experience. You can only do what that tool is designed to do, but you can still be more open. You can start being more open about the content that you can bring and incorporate. So if I write a letter, for example, it could be about a different topic, and I can create with the same tool a poem, or I can do a report and include pictures. So the experience starts being more open. At the bottom, we have what I call constructionist tools. And again, they can be narrow or they can be more open. So in your right side, I have still constructionist tools, but they allow you to do creation. And then in this side is the more open-ended tools, like the ones that I mentioned earlier. And we have tools that you might have heard, Scratch, that is a programming environment that allows kids to do stories, but anything that they want. It was created with the metaphor of stories, so you have, you will feel that metaphor as you use the tool. But we have Turtle Art. Turtle Art comes from early ages, from Logo, so I can do a lot of art with Turtle Art. Now we have a more advanced version that allows you to do almost anything and interact with any other peripheral that the machine will have attached. We have tools like robotics, so we have Arduino software, we have go-go boards. If you have heard about go-go boards, it's also a microchip that allows kids to interact with sensors and motors. So this is sort of like the view of technology, and like I said, we promote everything, but we sort of gravitate around the bottom part of the software. We also pay attention to learning and how do I understand learning. So we are promoting digital portfolios. We are also promoting, and I don't think that you can see that well, we are trying to capture all the metadata. That means in the backside of the software, we're trying to capture what kids do and try to understand not only what they do, but what they prefer. So if they create a letter, we can analyze that the kids that use word processor tend to include pictures that they find in the internet, or maybe they tend to draw their own pictures and include them. They tend to maybe format the text or maybe not, what differences in gender. So we're trying to understand all of these preferences and uses using metadata of the different software that we have created. So we really pay attention not to standardized tests, but really use the technology as well to understand what is authentic learning. But all of these ideas, I'm going to give you an example. So this is a project that we have done with programs in OLPC around the world, but it's something that I did personally with the group of kids that I worked during my thesis. I work in Costa Rica. I know there's someone from Costa Rica that I met this morning. So I work with this one teacher school in Costa Rica for a year. And what I did is, besides having every kid take a laptop home and use it also at school, I was trying to understand what happens when you give every child a computer, when the teacher has a classroom with laptops and kids with laptops, what happens with the family when they see that the kids are not taking notes, but they're building projects. But something that I did was work with the teacher and rewrite the curriculum of the year into projects. So I was very fortunate to have that opportunity. I work really closely with the ministry and also with the teachers. So this is a specific project we did about the community. It fed the Costa Rican one teacher schools have these chunks they call projects or units. So they have topics that sort of guide learning through the year. So we use some of those to generate an idea. So I have some of those icons that I presented earlier because as I reflected in my personal experience, I'm going to try to show you how project examples also touch on those same ideas. So we had an idea, the community, and the community is broad enough that we could explore different aspects of the community within that umbrella. So we did maps of the community. So we imagined if we had to give a map to someone who arrived for the first time to the community, how do we walk those people through our community? So kids made maps of their communities using pencil and paper, thinking about north, south, what would be the best strategy to walk these people through the most important things in my community, my school, the church, the cemetery, the medical center. So I had examples of first graders, fifth graders, and sixth graders in the different maps that they created. We moved into creating the same maps using microroles. So we spend a lot of time in this particular activity because the teacher took this as an opportunity to talk about different institutions in the community, what the transportation they have compared to urban areas, what animals they have that urban areas might not have. So we spend a lot of time doing these projects. And like I said, we have different resources and a lot of time. We actually spend 2 weeks entire just working on this different activities that belong to the community project. We also had, and I wanted to talk about the differences. they made decisions about how to build their projects. So I found, for example, the girls tended to do more their own drawings. So if they wanted to talk about communication or animals or park, they will draw really carefully their images that they will include in their projects. Boys tended to do more, I worry about something else. I'm gonna make my project more sophisticated in different ways, but not aesthetically. So they just picked the images from clip art. The projects were as powerful and good. And we spent the most time doing this physical map of the community. So we measured the community using a robotic tool that we had, and we used sensors. What we did, and here we spent time because what I wanted to do was sort of demonstrate that kids might remember things that they don't know how to use, but in this case, we were actually using them. So I asked them what would be the best way to measure our community. And we talk about, steps. What if I count my steps? What if I go in a car? We ended up with the decision to measure the community using a bike. So we put a magnet on the wheel, on the tire of the bike, and then we measure revolutions. Then we had long discussions, especially with the oldest kids, because they didn't know how to arrive to that value. I was like, what if now that you have revolutions, you know how many times that wheel passed through that magnet in order to measure the whole community or to travel through the community. So kids really, they didn't know whether they had to use they sort of had an idea that they had to use a formula, but they didn't know if they had to calculate the area of that circle. So we spent a lot of time, even with the youngest one, talking about that. Why use the bicycle? What it means to have revolutions? And then we arrive with this distance at the end. And then we found a piece of wood, and we wanted to build that community and that piece of wood. So we talk about how people build maps, and that's what we're going to do, a map of our community. And how do we calculate the factor that I'm going to use in order to shrink everything. So that, for me, that was the most powerful idea. I talk about powerful ideas. I'm sure kids explore in different projects, different things. The most powerful idea for me, that was scale, how to scale, because they understood it really well. Later in the year, they actually proposed to do the same thing with the solar system. They brought an idea that they have understood, a powerful idea, and put it in the context of something very different but similar. So here I provide some details of what we did, how we arrived to that scaling factor. Then the kids had to go measure their own houses. There was a lot of discussion because when they measure the houses and then we scale it, the houses were maybe an inch big, not so happy, compared to 2-inch house that the kid next door might have. So it was an interesting debate. What happened also was the community was concentrated in a center. It was about 40 families. But then there was a couple of families that lived sort of in the edge of the community, but we had to include them. So that made the community be so small, but then a lot of field and then a house really far. So we ended up, there's an island in Costa Rica called Coco Island, and it comes in the map in a corner, so it's at a different scale. So we ended up creating her house as a Coco Island house, and everyone was happier having their houses be a little bit bigger. This is how we started the project. These are all the kids doing their calculations. We're sort of on top of that piece of wood that we used to build the community, and this is the map of the community at the end. So I spent about a week on this activity alone. There was an opportunity to do more sophisticated things. The kids were only up to 6th grade, so I stopped here, but there was advice from different members of our group to do more, how you will calculate how high the houses are, and then you use trigonometry to, I was like, this is too much for this group, but a good opportunity, so we have documented this project like that. And another important thing that I mentioned at the beginning was the audience. So we had kids present their projects at all times. So every time we finished 1 week or 2 weeks project, the kids went around talking about their project. I think it's one of the things that I talk about most in my thesis, because when I started the project, I work a lot with the teacher, develop all of these ideas, projects with the ministry. The first day I arrived at the school, he's like, okay, now you're gonna teach. So I started teaching, and I had all of these kids ask me every 5 minutes, what's next? What do I do next? And I was like, oh my God, I feel so bad for teachers. My head was going to explode, because that's what kids are used to. They're used to be told all the time what to do. And we had, my whole idea was that they will take these projects and continue this project. So the first project of the community, 2 weeks, was wonderful. When I asked them about these projects, they could barely talk about them. They could barely own these projects. And I was like, I failed. I spent these 2 weeks here. And that's, over time, what I saw kids really do: own their learning, be empowered, talk about how they learn differently, how their other friends learn differently. They became so fluent with their learning and so eloquent about what they did. So I brought this picture, and also when we did the solar system project, we interacted with NASA. So we had a visit. I was already done with my thesis, but they had a visit from NASA. And the person, this is the person from NASA and his wife, they were talking to me, and they're like, these kids are teaching us how to program. They're teaching us how to do micros, they're teaching us how to do robotics. We're not asking them to do that, but that's what they want to do. So they were amazing. And the other thing that I observed over time, because I visited 2 years after, the kids now graduated all from the school. 2 of them are in college. The first one is in medical school. The second one, I think she's in architecture. I visited 2 years later, and you couldn't tell. I mean, the teacher was not that techie. He knew what was possible with the technology. He encouraged the kids to use it, but it was the kids themselves who took the younger kids as they enter school and taught them how to use the technology. So you couldn't tell what group of kids have worked with me and what other kids have come and joined the school. So I brought this group of students from Harvard, and they were amazed that all of the kids 2 years later had created this learning culture that's still present in the school. So that's the kind of change that you would like to see happen. And like I said, all of these environments, the time we had, ideas that were mine, but were also teachers' ideas, kids' ideas, family members, made this amazing projects wonderful. And I value as much the pencil and paper projects as they value the ones with technology, different kinds of technology, but all amazing projects that I'm sure change their lives. So like Rosanna said, I'm the lead educator for the organization. We have 2.5 million computers around the world. And we really took this mission of giving opportunities to kids in developing worlds, in the corners of the world that might not have that technology, might not have that opportunity to learn in powerful ways might not even have a school. And this comes from Seymour Papert, and is this statement that reminds us that technology is not going to make a difference. And when I talk about technology, I think about digital technologies, but other technologies. It's not the technology that is going to make a difference, but it's us rethinking, because we understand how those technologies are used, that we are empowered to make the difference. So the presence of technology is really the opportunity to rethink how people learn, how kids learn, and that's why we're so interested in capturing, like I mentioned, all of this data of use that will help us understand preferences, uses, and how kids really use this technology. We go by 5 guiding principles. Some of them were present in my thesis. So we want a kid to own the technology, to own the computer. It could be a temporary ownership. The most important thing is to have the kid use it at all times. We think that learning doesn't happen just in the school. We have some of the countries where we're working have maybe 3 hours of school because they have 2 shifts. Kids come for 2 hours and a half. They have early lunch, they leave. So just saying that that's enough is not sufficient for us. So we really believe that learning happens at all times. It happens with a community. It happens with your parents because they might learn with you when they didn't know. We work with young children, like I said, and I started just bringing the picture of my daughter. I do a lot of projects with her, and I can see her way of living and approaching tools and approaching what she wants to do in such a different way. That's why we're so interested in kids in primary schools. It's not a really defined line, because some of the countries where we work have overage kids at 15, maybe in 2nd or 3rd grade. So, but we really are interested in working with kids at a really young age. We believe in saturation. That means that we want everyone to have that same experience. It might be a country. We have Uruguay be our first country and only country that has all kids in primary school and middle school with these laptops, all connected to the internet, and all the teachers facing this new era. It might be a state, it might be a community, it might be a municipality. So we have all different scales, but really thinking about everyone having that same opportunity and learning in the same way. We want people to be connected. That's not always the case. We have, for example, a country. We have Peru is a country where altitude is not different from Colombia. Our advantage is Bogota. Our capital is really high. So it developed really high, and it moved, and I'm talking topography. In Peru, Lima is really low. Lima is sea level. So we have schools where not even the cell phone works. They don't have a line. But the country really took this challenge, decided that the kids in rural areas, more remote, have the less opportunity, low quality of education. That's where they wanted to go. They're still facing the challenge of getting the kids connected. But most places where we are, children are connected to each other, to others in their country, to everyone around the world, have access to information, but most important, they can share what they do. We see a lot of kids from Uruguay now developing software, amazing, 13 years old, creating software that is being used for the community. And we go with free open source software, not just because of the cost, but because, like I said, kids in Uruguay programming, what we want is people deciding the type of software they need, the interaction they want. Maybe they like this software, but they rather make changes to make it more specific to what they need, and that's the kind of thing that we want to see happen everywhere. And we also think that the skills that you promote, people develop the capacity, and the being able to manage at all levels the project locally is what's most important. So I have some pictures of kids. This is in Peru. We have, like I said, early ages. This is in Nicaragua. We have an amazing project in Nicaragua. They have about 30,000 computers. And I'll mention this in the context of the status of this kids, especially in the region, but everywhere in the world. Kids Connected, and like I said, open source software. Where we are, this is more or less where we are. We are throughout the world, but like I said a few times, 2.5 million computers are in Latin America. They're in Uruguay, Argentina, Peru, Colombia, Mexico, Central America, more and more, Nicaragua, a big project. And this is what I wanted to mention, especially in the context of Nicaragua. We have, these are the kids, so at the bottom we have the, and I don't think that you could see that well, but we have about 60 million children in school in Latin America, and about 5% of those are kids outside school. So we're really hoping that those kids through these programs have an opportunity. Nicaragua, I find it interesting, is a really poor country, but the private sector has funded this development, and they have served by now what is equivalent to their 5% of kids outside. Not all of the kids that they have worked with are outside school. Some of them, and they have registered those, that data, that new kids are moving to school when they were not in school, but they have been in 2 years able to attend that number of kids that will be equivalent to their 5% of kids outside. These are numbers of critical countries. Nigeria is a country where I've been 5 times, has a lot of resources, a lot of rich people, but a lot of poor people, and they have more than, this indicator is countries that have more than 500,000 kids outside school. Nigeria has 100 million people, and about 25% of those are children in primary and middle school. So they have a huge gap, and we're making progress in Nigeria. And we have these predictions for the future. These are in the red, predictions for people who might not enter school ever. So we're really working with the countries that are in those numbers, but working in the US more and more. We have 2 big projects, one now for second year in Miami and moving to North Carolina as well, because we think that what is relevant to these children and all of the ideas that I mentioned are as relevant also for kids in the developed world. What we're doing at scale, we continue to innovate. Our machine is designed for children in the developing world. The battery lasts 8 hours, is easy to charge because it consumes about 3 watts compared to a machine, regular laptop that is about 30 to 40 watts. So you can charge it with a generator that you can crank, or you can charge it with a solar panel that is not so expensive. People are creative in these countries, and they use a bicycle also to generate power and charge their computers. They have a number of sensors. They have a screen that kids could use to read, like the Kindle, to read in solar light, in sunlight. So we continue to innovate in terms of hardware, but also in terms of software. We're working on a certification program for teachers. We're trying, and I'm trying really hard to work with schools of education for teachers. I do believe that, for the next generation, I continue to poke Uruguay, because every teacher that graduates in Uruguay is going to have computers in the classroom. They have changed the Constitution to say that from now on, the right of education comes with technology and with internet. So they have made possible for every kid to have it. Maybe not our machine in 1 or 2 years, but computers and technology for them. So every teacher graduating in Uruguay is going to face this. I cannot believe that they still have that traditional, I mean, it's going to move forward, but they still have traditional education for teachers that were teaching maybe 20 years ago. So we have to work with them. But we also have all of these teachers in the system. Not all of them might be like you, open to learn new methodologies, new technologies. We have, I mean, it's a cliche, but we have a really big bottleneck with teachers. But we're making progress, so we're working with teachers. Like I mentioned earlier, we're designing and proving and testing new strategies to understand what kids do to make visible learning. And we're creating new projects. So like the type of project I presented, the community project, we're working on creating projects that might be small, that a teacher maybe in math or science or social sciences or English might be able to bring to their classroom. But we're also creating this interdisciplinary, more radical projects that other teachers are also slowly integrating, especially when primary school teachers that teaches, they teach all the subjects. So, but nothing's going to happen unless, and we continue to challenge the curriculum, because we want to move from what I learned today that I might use one day, and this is how we, the curriculum is pretty much designed, not learn today what I will use today. That will be useful to me, not only because I learned that one concept, but because I learned that way of learning, of approaching knowledge, of approaching tools. So we continue to challenge curriculum, again, to say what's worthwhile learning and how. Nothing's going to change unless technology is viewed not as a one more subject, and now there's standards to teach these subjects, and I'm going to evaluate them, and that's what technology teachers feel it should move forward. We want technology to be like the pencil. I love that analogy that Papa always uses. A pencil is given to you almost when you have any motor skills and you start mastering and learning how to use that pencil. But there's not a pencil room where everyone goes and uses the pencil for a little bit, or the pencil is not shared by 3 or 4 people. What if I want to make a note and there's ideas powerful, but then I'm waiting for someone else to finish so I can use that pencil? So we think technology is like a pencil, a different kind of technology, and we think it should be used like that, like the pencil, for kids to learn, to write, to make drawings, to take pictures, to make videos, to make their projects. And assessment, even innovative assessment like the digital portfolios that I mentioned, they're innovative, but if we're still thinking about standards and trying to evaluate with those portfolios, the concepts of the curriculum, we're not making any progress. So those are 3 areas where we are pushing, and I encourage you to continue to think about those. And I'm going to close with this phrase. Seymour Papert had an accident a few years ago. We often refer to him as he had died, but he lost his memory. But this is something that I remember him in his later years saying, when I presented all of these innovative ideas to educators, they felt empowered. But then when they arrive in the classroom, 30 kids, computers, robotics, programming, they feel, what do I do now? So he often referred that as Monday. What would I do Monday? And he felt like teachers were always facing, what would I do Monday? And he said he changed the strategy and encouraged people to say, don't lose that horizon, don't lose that vision of the future, and think about what you will do on Monday that is possible, but always thinking about the future. So let's not just think about Monday and stop there, but let's continue to think about Monday, what I do when I have my kids, what I do when I have all of this knowledge and ideas that you're gonna acquire this week, but think about the future, what kids might learn that might use in the future, not now. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.